Hello, our topic for this video is golden isotraps. Golden isotraps are very, very special and important planetary patterns that involve 4 planets. There are 2 other special patterns that involve 4 planets and golden ratios, and those other 2 are the golden strings. I described golden strings in part 3 of this series, and golden pyramids, which I described in part 5. And in this video, part 6 of the 7 videos in this series, I'm going to describe golden isotraps. So these are the 3 very special patterns. Why are they special? Because they have multiple midpoint structures created out of 4 planets. And part of the, you might say, the magic of these patterns is that golden ratios have a fractal kind of quality where the golden ratio repeats at different levels. So you get this intricate tapestry of energies going on in these patterns. So even for people who have no interest in astrology, might think astrology is nonsense, but are interested in geometry, identifying these 3 special patterns that can be formed by 4 points is very, very interesting. I mean, as a part of geometry, it's just fascinating. And in astrology, at least I believe they're very, very powerful. And I've shown the research evidence that they are powerful. And I'll show some more evidence of that in the last video, the 7th video. Okay, let me show you what a golden isotrap is. A golden isotrap is an isotrap. It's a special kind of isotrap that has golden ratios in it. What is an isotrap? Isotrap is short for isosceles trapezoid, and an isotrap is simply a shape with 4 sides, and 2 of the sides have the same angle. A rectangle is like a special kind of isotrap where the angles are square. If the angles are not 90 degrees, then we have an isotrap. So an isotrap is like a square with one side caved in. Well, here's an isotrap formed by Sun, Mercury, Mars, and Pluto. And the Sun-Mercury angle is the same as the Mars-Pluto angle. So the 4 sides, if you were to draw lines, would be Sun to Mercury, Mercury to Mars, Mars to Pluto, and then Pluto to Sun. And you get, if you draw those 4 lines in, you have an isotrap. It's a symmetrical pattern where the Sun-Mercury angle is the same as the Mars-Pluto angle. That's by definition. Whenever 2 planets have the same angle, one pair of planets, in this case Sun-Mercury, has the same angle as another pair of planets, Mars-Pluto. That's all you need. As soon as you have that, you have an isotrap. So the Mercury-Mars is, you might call the base, or the Sun-Pluto as the base, and it's a symmetrical pattern with the point of symmetry is the halfway point or midpoint between Mercury and Mars. So astrologically, what makes an isotrap very powerful is not only is the Sun-Mercury angle the same as the Mars-Pluto angle, by definition, that's what makes it an isotrap, but the Sun-Mars angle is the same as the Mercury-Pluto angle. So it's this powerful force of nature that whenever 2 planets have this resonance between them, resonance created by the angular distance being the same, there's another resonance. You always get a double resonance. The Mercury-Pluto angle is the same as the Sun-Mars angle. So you can never get a single resonance. You can never get just 2 pairs of planets with the same angle. It always creates another pair of planets with the same angle, and all of these are part of these 4 planets. Now notice, by the way, the Sun-Mercury angle looks larger than the Mars-Pluto angle, and that's just because we had to stick the moon in here and the way that the planets got spread out. But the Sun-Mercury angle is about 26 degrees. The Mars-Pluto angle is about 26 degrees. So that's an isotrap. A golden isotrap is when Mercury is at the golden mean of Sun-Mars, in this case. The second planet is at the golden mean of the first and third, and the third planet, Mars, is at the golden mean of Mercury Pluto. So a golden isotrap is similar to a string. If you remember, a string is 4 planets making midpoints to each other, just like this, but in a string, each angular distance gets bigger by the golden ratio. So they're getting bigger. In a golden mean isotrap, they're not getting bigger as we go clockwise or counterclockwise, but specifically, it has to be an isotrap with a very specific shape, which, let me show you this in the next slide. Here's the shape that makes a golden isotrap. If you take the 3 angles, if we have planets A, B, C, and D, so A, B, and C, and D are planets. Say A is the Sun, B is the Moon, C is Jupiter, D is Saturn, any 4 planets. In order to be a golden isotrap, the wide part of it must be on the sides, with the short part in the middle. So remember that a golden mean, there are 2 golden means. There are 2 golden means between any 2 planets. So between A and C, there are 2 golden means. And in this case, I have 100 degrees. 62 means 62 degrees. 38 means 38 degrees. 62 plus 38 is 100. So if the angle between A and C is 100 degrees, if planet B is 62 degrees from A, and therefore 38 degrees from C, or if it was over here, 38 degrees from A and 62 degrees from C, both of those points are golden mean midpoints between A and C. So there are always 2 golden mean midpoints between 2 planets. To have a golden isotrap, B must be at the second of those 2 possible golden mean midpoints. It's what we call the GM6, 6 meaning the 0.62, or more precisely 0.618, and this more precisely is 0.382. So it's approximately, for example, if this was A and B angle 62 degrees and the BC angle is 38 degrees, B is at the GM6 midpoint between A and C, and then C is at the closer of the 2 midpoints between B and D. It's the GM3. So it's a GM6 midpoint structure followed by a GM3 midpoint structure. That specific arrangement, and only that arrangement, makes the very special pattern where B is at the golden midpoint of A and C. It's also at the golden midpoint of A and D, and C is at the golden midpoint of B and D, and also at the golden midpoint of A and D. So you get 4 golden mean midpoint structures out of 4 planets. There are no direct midpoint structures. The golden isotrap has 4 golden mean midpoint structures. There's also what we call silver isotraps. There's 2 kinds. One where you have an isotrap and B is at the golden mean of A and C is at the golden mean of B and D, but you only have those 2 midpoints. So this has like a wider base. It's closer to being a rectangle. This has the narrow base, the sides are long, and it creates the golden mean isotrap. Now, you don't need to memorize this. Do not memorize it. Don't worry about it. If you're looking at a chart and you start seeing a lot of golden mean midpoints between them, you may all of a sudden notice that 4 planets are all making golden mean midpoints to each other, and that's because it's a golden isotrap. So this is just to let you know there's some details to how these things can form. Just to let you know, and this is just the way the geometry is. The way this geometry is very specific and very interesting, very fascinating, very elegant and refined. It's just the way it is. So this specific relationship creates this very special interaction between planets. The silver isotrap is just not as powerful. The effects are not as strong. What a golden isotrap does is very similar to a golden pyramid and a golden string. The planets flow together beautifully. There's this natural talent, this facility to just express those planets. A silver isotrap has that natural flow, that smoothness, that ease, but not as powerful. So the golden isotrap is the most powerful of the possible isotraps that have golden mean relationships. Another silver isotrap is if the planets are very far apart, you'll get far golden mean midpoint structures. I'll show you an example of this in this video so you understand it. So with the bottom line is that if the planets are arranged in this specific order, a GM6 midpoint structure followed by a GM3, and the distances are not huge, you get this very, very special combination of planets. Now let me go back to the previous slide and talk more about this specific chart. This is the astrology chart for a baseball player whose name is Tony Gwynn, one of the best baseball players of all time, ever. And this is his 35th harmonic chart. So I know this sounds bizarre. It sounds very abstract, sounds very far-fetched that these intricate patterns in a harmonic chart could be fundamental, but they are. We have research over and over and over again showing that it's true. These are very, very powerful. So what we're discovering in vibrational astrology is that there's this intricate tapestry of energies, just fascinating, beautiful patterns that are formed that have not been identified before, because historically people didn't have the ability to calculate this accurately or this quickly with computers, and it's only in this information age that we can make these discoveries. So what we have in the 35th harmonic chart of Tony Gwynn is this beautiful pattern, and we have the midpoint structures here in the upper right hand corner, is that Mercury is at the golden mean. This circle means golden mean between Sun and Mars. Mercury is at the golden mean of Sun and Mars, and the circle without the, I'll call these spokes, means it's a GM6. Mercury's at the second midpoint between Sun and Mars, second going in zodiac order, so it's the Sun-Mercury angle is longer than the Mercury-Mars angle. And then Mars is at the GM3 midpoint between Mercury and Pluto. It's at the first of the two midpoints between Mercury and Pluto. It may not look like it's the first. I mean, visually, because we've stuck in the midheaven and the north node here, these got spread out just so they don't overlap each other. But if we look at the angular distances, Sun to Mercury is about 26 degrees. Mercury to Mars is about 7 plus 9 is 16, and Mars to Pluto is about 26. So it's about 26 degrees from Sun to Mercury, followed by 16 degrees Mercury to Mars, followed by 26 degrees. So it's 26, 16, 26, just like I'm showing here. 62, 38, 62, the long distance, short, long. So that's the golden mean midpoint structure, and not only is Mercury at the golden mean midpoint of Sun and Mars, it's at the golden mean midpoint of Sun and Pluto. So Mercury is at the golden midpoint of Sun and Mars, looking at it visually on the wheel, and it's at the golden midpoint of Sun and Pluto. Mars is at the golden mean of Mercury, Pluto, and it's at the golden mean of Sun, Pluto. Just an amazing, fascinating geometric pattern that occurs. Now, the 35th harmonic might sound very far-fetched. Why is anybody looking at the 35th harmonic? We believe from our research that the 35th harmonic gives talent in two areas. It gives talent in the arts and in sports. Why arts and sports? Because it gives playfulness of 5 plus the discipline and focus of 7. So they enjoy disciplined play. They enjoy practicing something creative and playful. And that's what you do in sports. You practice a game, something that you're playing, and it's also what you do in arts. So it gives this a love to become like an artisan, to become refined, to refine the creative expression. So having this beautiful facility of Sun, Mercury, Mars, and Pluto, which in the study of athleticism, of athletic ability, we found that any planets other than Moon, Venus, or Neptune in these patterns, in strong patterns in the 35th harmonic, give athletic talent. They give coordination. They give smoothness. They give this ability to express very beautifully. And in 35th harmonic, they practice. They enjoy it. This is what they do. So this, we believe, is why Tony Gwynn, one of the big reasons why he was one of the greatest baseball players of all time. I know it sounds unbelievable. You know, it's unbelievable to people that don't believe in astrology, to people that do believe in astrology. It still may sound unbelievable that there could be these intricate, beautiful tapestry of energies going on, but they do exist. So that is the Golden Isotrap, and this is an example of it in a harmonic chart. So just to go over these three special patterns, because this is our last video on these special patterns, we have the Golden Isotrap has 4 golden mean midpoint structures and no direct midpoint structures. The golden string, by contrast, both the golden string and the golden pyramid have 2 golden mean midpoint structures and 1 direct midpoint structure. So the golden string and golden pyramid are very similar to each other, excuse me, in that they both have 2 golden mean midpoint structures and 1 direct midpoint structure. The Golden Isotrap is different in that it has more golden mean midpoint structures, 4 of them, but no direct midpoint structures. Well, that might affect the way that these patterns influence us, what the astrological significance of them is. Right now, from our research, we haven't detected any clear difference. All 3 of these patterns give this facility, smoothness, naturalness, that the people just fall into this kind of energy flow very easily. They often take it for granted, just an innate capacity that they have. Or they may take advantage of it and develop it and use it as an asset. It's just something very ingrained and very easy. So notice also that the Golden Isotrap is a symmetrical pattern. The golden string and golden pyramid have symmetries in them, the symmetry being the direct midpoint structure, but the whole overall pattern is not symmetrical. The Golden Isotrap is symmetrical. So to show you what I mean, this pattern, Sun, Mercury, Mars, Pluto, is symmetrical. There's a line of symmetry going right down the middle of both the Mercury-Mars midpoint and the Sun-Pluto midpoint. I'm just making observations. It's just curious that there happen to be 3 beautiful, intricate, inspiring patterns made out of 4 planets with these golden mean ratios. And it's interesting to just look at how they're different, what they have in common, and what's different. And lastly, there are silver pyramids and there are silver isotraps. Silver means they don't have all of the qualities of the golden. They're missing some of the midpoint structures. And I've described the silver isotrap in this video. I just described it, the 2 conditions under which it occurs, these 2 conditions. And in the video on pyramids, I described what silver pyramids are. So those are the total of 5 kinds of patterns, the 3 most powerful: golden isotraps, golden strings, and golden pyramids. And then there are 2 weaker versions of the pyramids and the isotraps, which we call the silver variety, silver pyramids and silver isotraps. So that's what they are. Now, what I want to do is talk a little bit about how this works in Tony Gwynn's chart. As I said before, the 35th harmonic gives an inclination to develop expertise in a creative area. The 7 gives the discipline, the focus, the maturity. 5, the playfulness. It is the harmonic of the craftsman, the artisan, and the disciplined athlete. That's what 35 does. It makes a person who's a craftsman or artisan or a disciplined athlete. It gives the potential for it. Hopefully they develop this capability. It gives motivation to practice and develop expertise in some area that involves play or creativity. So whenever I see 35th harmonic, I see the opportunity for developing maturity, developing expertise in a creative area, because the person will practice, 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 and over time they develop excellence. Now, baseball may not seem like a sport that is like a craft or the work of an artisan. In baseball, what are you doing in the offense, the batting? All you're doing is you're swinging the stick at a ball. They call the stick a bat. So where's the craftsmanship? Where's the refinement? Well, this gets very interesting. When I read the biography of Tony Gwynn, it just amazed me. How they describe him as a craftsman. Unbelievable, which I had no idea of until I started reading the biography. Well, number one, Tony Gwynn had one of the highest batting averages of all time. His batting performance was extraordinary. One website lists him as the 5th greatest baseball player of all time, another as the 13th. Remember, this is all time, not just this year, but ever. Excuse me. Now, here's some quotes from Wikipedia. This just amazed me because I'm expecting this, and they describe exactly what I'm expecting based on the nature of the 35th harmonic. It says, a poor fielder in college, his work on his defense was rewarded in 1986 when he received his first Gold Glove. The following year, he won the first of 3 consecutive batting titles. And I put here in smaller font, in yellow here, he worked to be the best. Think about it. He was a poor fielder, and then he gets the Golden Glove Award. Years later, practice, practice, practice. This is what the 35th harmonic is good at. Another quote from Wikipedia. 43 of his 135 career homes were in his final 3 full seasons. So at the end of his career, he starts hitting many, many more home runs than he did previously. So he had a great batting average, but he was not a power hitter. He got singles and doubles. He wasn't hitting lots of home runs. But towards the end of his career, he started hitting more home runs, which you might not expect because he's getting older. You might think he would have less power. But he's hitting more power in his last few years. Gwynn credited his later improvement to Ted Williams and his book, The Science of Hitting. So if you don't know baseball, then you might not have heard of Ted Williams. He's even a greater baseball player, much more well-known, one of the best of the best of the best. And Ted Williams wrote a book called The Science of Hitting. So Ted Williams goes back earlier than Tony Gwynn. Ted Williams was already retired, and he had written this book, The Science of Hitting. As Gwynn says, he read this book, The Science of Hitting, 4 or 5 times a year. So Gwynn is reading this book, which is not that complex or intricate, on how to bat over and over and over again. And Gwynn and Williams become friends. They often talked for hours about hitting. Now, can you imagine this? You might think hitting's a simple thing. You just swing the stick at a ball. They will talk for hours about it. Ted Williams writes a book on the science of hitting. And Gwynn lamented not having met Williams earlier and possibly adjusting his hitting approach sooner. So, conclusion, I put here in yellow, is that Gwynn loved the game. He was a student and an analyst of the game. Ted Williams and Tony Gwynn were, I've got a typo here, were master craftsmen. Gwynn was one of the greatest, but was always a student, and he learned from the best. So this craftsman-like style, this approach, is very clear in the way they describe Tony Gwynn. Here's another quote from Wikipedia. Gwynn attended Long Beach Polytechnic High School, which was a high-profile school in sports. He was a 2-sport star in both basketball and baseball. Now listen to this. This is amazing. Gwynn received scholarship offers to play college basketball, but none for college baseball. So this is interesting. He becomes one of the greatest baseball players of all time. He did not get scholarships to go to college for baseball. He got them for basketball. And this is another thing about 35th harmonic. It gives this facility, this naturalness, this competency, not for a specific sport, just in general. The 77th is more for fast sports like boxing. 21 and 63 are good for smooth sports like tennis, also the baseball swing. So we see certain harmonics are good for certain kinds of sports. When you see 35, they are versatile. They can be good in lots of different sports. So as I read the biography, it just makes sense. So when we do this research and we work with vibrational astrology, we're not just doing number crunching kinds of research. We use it in counseling people, working with people, understanding how they are motivated and what works best for them. So Gwynn was not a home run hitter. He was amazingly consistent. He had fewer strikeouts than most players. He had streaks of hitting at least one hit in many consecutive games. He was just very, very consistent. And this is typical of 35th harmonic because of the 7 quality giving that steadiness. Here's another little quote from Wikipedia. Gwynn met Hall of Famer Ted Williams for the first time during the 1992 All-Star Game. At the time, Gwynn considered himself to be an accomplished hitter, content to hit singles and doubles. Williams called Gwynn a big guy capable of hitting for more power. He chided Gwynn for using a toothpick for a bat. His encounter with Williams spurred him to think more about hitting, and he began to hit for more power. I've never been a home run guy, never been a big RBI guy, but from that point to the end of my career, I was much better at it, said Gwynn. So I put here in yellow my comment. Gwynn and Ted Williams were analysts of batting technique. Gwynn was one of the greatest hitters of all time, despite not having the power of many other players. And this quote is really amazing. Gwynn's physical appearance defied his athleticism. He stood 5 feet 11 inches thick around the middle and thighs, even at his athletic prime. When he could really run, he weighed around 200 pounds. It was considered pudgy. His roly-poly frame, blah, blah, blah. So being 5'11 and 200 pounds is typical for an athlete, but it's usually a lot more muscle than that. So he was kind of pudgy. Despite this, he's one of the greatest batters of all time. That shows you the power of the 35th harmonic, what it can do. So Tony Gwynn and Ted Williams have a very close relationship. And they're both analysts. Williams writes the book, The Science of Hitting. I looked it up on Amazon.com, gets great reviews. Tony Gwynn studies it. They become friends. Fortunately, Ted Williams, like Tony Gwynn, we have AA data, time from a birth certificate. So I was curious to see Ted Williams' 35th harmonic chart, because typically people who form these bonds have similar kinds of charts, and I expected that because of their friendship especially, that Ted Williams might also have a strong 35th harmonic chart. And here's Ted Williams' 35th harmonic chart. You'll see Uranus, Mercury, Saturn, and Jupiter here in Scorpio and Sagittarius. What's not obvious from this is that Mercury is right at the midpoint of Saturn and Uranus, only a 13-minute orb. So we allow a 16-degree orb for conjunctions in a harmonic chart, preferably within about half of that 8 degrees to be strong, and these are within about 6 to 7 degrees of each other, so they're barely make it as a significant conjunction. But what makes the Mercury, Saturn, Uranus special is that Mercury's right smack at the midpoint, and then Saturn is at the midpoint of Jupiter and Uranus, only a 14-minute orb. So this is a pyramid. Saturn at the Jupiter-Uranus midpoint, Mercury at the Saturn-Uranus midpoint. These pyramid patterns, this is not a golden pyramid pattern. This is just a normal midpoint pyramid where, again, one planet, in this case Saturn's at the midpoint of Jupiter-Uranus, and Mercury's at the midpoint of Saturn-Uranus. This is very fundamental. In vibrational astrology, these kind of midpoint patterns are equivalent to somebody talking about the ruler of your rising sign in a particular house or something in normal astrology. Even though it sounds abstract and far-fetched to many people when they first hear about it, these are the fundamental basics of vibrational astrology. So bottom line is that, as expected, Ted Williams does have a very powerful pattern in the 35th harmonic, as we expected, and he has the similar traits as Tony Gwynn has. So a summary of observations. Sorry about that phone ringing in the background. I'll just ignore that for the moment. So, summary of observations. Tony Gwynn went from a poor fielder in college to winning the Golden Glove Award. He had the gift of athletic talent in general, basketball as well as baseball. He achieved enormous success by analyzing, adjusting, practicing, and perfecting, as did Ted Williams, and he learned from Ted Williams. And he did not reach his level of success by simply having a knack for swinging a baseball bat. He was a master craftsman who, like a greatest artist, continued to learn and improve. So that's just a summary of what's happening. I just want to show you this to give you a better idea of the silver isotrap. Here we have an isotrap of Mars at Sun Uranus and Uranus at Mars Pluto. It's exactly the kind we want. A GM6 followed by a GM3, but the Sun-Pluto angle is more than 180 degrees. So when these angles are big, some of the midpoint structures are far golden mean midpoints, and we don't know if these are powerful or not yet. We haven't done enough research. So the Mars at Sun-Pluto has this little vertical thing, means a far midpoint. Uranus at Sun-Pluto also has that vertical thing, means it's a far midpoint, means that Uranus is at a golden mean of Sun-Pluto, but not the near one, the two that are directly between Sun and Pluto, but on the other side. There are two near golden means midpoints and two far golden mean midpoints. I talk about this in the first few, I think it's the first or second video in the series. But anyway, I just want to mention that we don't yet consider this kind of golden isotrap to be as powerful because they involve far golden mean midpoints. Far meaning it's at not the nearest ones between Sun and Pluto, but on the other side, on this side where the distance is greater than 180. We don't know if those are as important yet. They haven't shown up clearly and conspicuously in the research we've done yet. It's very clear that the near golden mean midpoints are important. Okay, so that's it. And we're going to interpret John Burns' chart in the last video in the series, part 7, where I'm going to show the results of another research study on golden mean midpoints, and that'll be the last in this series of 7 videos on our research into golden means, which very, very, very strongly suggests that they are important, they work, and we're getting an idea of how they work and what they do. All right, so I've shown this in other videos. I won't show it again here, but you can select golden mean midpoint structures in the series 2.0 software. Oh, well, I'll show it real quick. Why not? Well, let me shrink this down. This will just take a second. We shrink this down to fit. I've got this big thing here. Let me pull this into the area that we're viewing. If you go to midpoints over here, and you go to view change, and you go to advanced settings, this button, you can select golden ratio midpoint structures, and you have an option for far midpoints. I usually uncheck this if I'm doing charts of clients or want to understand a person, because I don't know if these are important yet, and I just look at these. But this will give you the far midpoint structures, and the far midpoint structure, as I just explained, is indicated by a little vertical bar in the midpoint structure. This little vertical bar to the right of the wheel thing means it's a far midpoint structure. You'll only see those if you select those with that option. Okay, so I summarized some points here. I think I've explained this all very well. We don't need to go over this again. So that's it, my friends. We've now covered all 3 very special and fascinating 4-planet patterns that involve lots of golden mean ratios. Very fascinating. Looks very clear that they're important. I hope you enjoyed that and found that interesting. God bless. Namaste.